What's up, War Report family? It's your boy C-Dub. It's Bowl Selection Sunday, so we discuss the bowl possibilities for Auburn football. Also, portal season is about to open up this Monday, so we go by position groups and look at where Auburn needs to upgrade the talent as opposed to who Auburn cannot afford to lose. We discuss that and more in this edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden Cast Iron. C-Dub. I Joe. Be Will. By G. You are now listening to.
Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Weekend Tailgate. I'm joined by Mike G. This show is sponsored by Golden's Cast Iron. Guys, please head over to goldenscastiron.com/WR. It's the holiday season. It's a chance to gift some of your loved ones and friends gifts. And Golden's Cast Iron has great ideas for gifts. Use code GETYOURWEIGHT to get 15% off weights or TWR to get $65 off fire pit or a Kamado grill. Special shout out to Golden's Cast Iron for being a sponsor of today's show. Also, we got great content and banter for you today. You definitely want to make sure as many people as possible get in on this conversation. Do that by sharing this link, this video to others. Smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Get yourself a Green Name gang because Ike is still reviewing film, even though we've officially entered into the off season. Mike G, tell people how you get a Green Name.
Oh man, listen, guys, go ahead and sign up for that Patreon membership. $5.99 will get you there. It's a great way to support the work that we're doing here at the War Report. If you've been seeing the firesides and the one-on-one interviews we've been doing, that is all brought to you in part by our patrons who support us monthly. It helps us continue that content. If you want more of that, sign up, become a member. You can also do that by gifting a membership to somebody who has not gotten one yet. We do put some content behind our paywall. As a member, you get access to that content, such as the film reviews that Caesar just referenced. So get the membership today. YouTube chooses these at random. So if you have not signed up, but you interact with our channel at a high level, you're most likely to be on the receiving end of that. We're giving away a mug today, guys. Hashtag Get Your Weight Up in the comments. This is sponsored by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. They sponsor all of our giveaways. Hashtag Get Your Weight Up. We're going to pull at the 1 hour mark. So you don't want to miss that. Make sure that you get into that drawing. Also, this show is brought to you in part by Manscaped. Guys, gentlemen, over at Manscaped, they've been working night and day to bring you below the waist grooming experience like none other with their brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Talking about next generation trimmer with interchangeable blades, heads, and whatever shave your mind can imagine. Imagine your grooming game to the Ultra Sphere this year by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with code RAPPORT. High tech for low places, Manscaped. Again, that's code RAPPORT for 20% off that Manscaped order. Also, want to give a quick shout out to the War Report Podcast Network, the Auburn Express, the Uptempo Podcast, the College Loop, and Just a Sec, bringing you guys nonstop audio-only content that you definitely do not want to miss. So go on over to wherever you listen to podcasts on, sign up and listen to us in audio-only format. Definitely some great content over there.
We'll grab some supers and comments here. Bird Eye, welcome back. Believe you've been a member before, so welcome, good sir. Cleveland Brown says, appreciate the super chat. He says it'll be us in the combo for the 12-team playoff next year. Speaking into existence, Cleveland, I am with you on that. Steve Bradley says FSU got screwed just because of QB issues. Heck, if Milroe gets hurt in the first playoff game, then they done and maybe anyway. FSU's defense won that game anyway. Bama had to make a fourth down to beat a 6-5 Auburn.
Yeah,
let's talk about it.
Yeah, look, we talk about this probably, Caesar. Anybody who is super down on this FSU team just solely because of Jordan Travis has not been watching them play defense all year. They are a legitimate defensive juggernaut. They play defense well all year, and you win every game. What else can you do? There was a tweet by Kirk Herbstreit that said, why are FSU fans so sensitive, right? Like, just win and you're in. And they did that, and now they're out. And I'd love to hear Kirk's explanation about just winning you're in. Now, obviously, he probably didn't account for Jordan Travis getting hurt, but in my opinion, that shouldn't matter, right? Like, you're talking about judging teams in a completely other dimension of subjectivity by saying, I don't think you can win, even though you've won all your games, because this guy is not playing. That's what happened. That's what happened to FSU. I don't think that's right. But ultimately, it came down to pissing off Alabama or pissing off Texas. And they decided they were going to piss off neither. And they left FSU out. So just my thoughts on it. The wins and losses have to matter. They had all the wins and none of the losses. And I just don't see how, even if you don't feel like they'll fare well in the playoff season, to me, that's irrelevant in this discussion. They won every single game and finished their conference on top. You got to put them in there. And them getting scrubbed up in the first round, again, to me, is beside the point.
Is this worse than when Auburn got left out back in 2004?
I think it is. And here's why. Because you had 4 undefeated teams that year. It was us, Oklahoma, USC, and I believe Utah went undefeated. Urban Meyer's Utah. They had Alex Smith was their quarterback that year. And Oklahoma and USC started the year 1-2, if I remember correctly, and they never lost, so they never came off those perches. And even though Auburn finished with stronger strength of schedule, at least you can see the logic behind sticking with the teams that they ranked 1 and 2 when those teams never lost. This is the same argument. They never lost the game. So in their minds, they're thinking, how can we punish these guys unless Auburn was so much better? Now, we know how that played out. USC beat Oklahoma 55-19. That was one of the worst championship beatdowns we've ever seen. And Auburn was on the outside looking in. In this case, in my opinion, this what happened to FSU is worse. Because you have 4 shots to get it right. Instead of and you did not have 5 undefeated teams. You had 3. Give me a break. You put them in. Like this that's why it's more egregious to me. You just jumped 2 1-loss teams over them to make this scenario happen. And that's not what they had in 2004. They had 4 0-loss teams at 2 spots.
Right.
So just my thoughts on it.
And you mentioned about that it's not, because really and truly, to Steve's point, if Jordan Travis isn't injured, Florida State's in the playoff, in my opinion. I don't think you make the same logic because you're projecting how Florida State is going to perform. Thus, you don't feel as though they should be in the playoff. However, if Jordan Travis is healthy, that changes the calculus of your logic in terms of who you put in.
Yeah.
How big of a loss is this for the ACC? Because you got to think about this whole conference realignment piece. A 1-loss SEC team went in above your undefeated conference champion. In the grand scope of conference realignment and super conferences, is Greg Sankey somewhere rubbing his hands together with an evil laugh?
He absolutely is, because he said it days ago. An SEC team getting left out is not reality. That's fantasy land, he said in an interview when he was stopped and he was asked about the possibility of the SEC having no teams in. If you're the ACC here, this wasn't necessarily about the strength of your conference, because in your conference championship, you had a top 10 matchup. So you had a top 10 matchup in your conference championship game. This was about your team specifically and its injury debate. So I don't know that the ACC is necessarily down about the conference because of this, but it is kind of a blow because you had Clemson, who was kind of like your perennial playoff contender in the last couple of years. They have not been that. And so to have FSU emerge as another team that can keep your conference in the conversation year in and year out was a blessing. But they did not get the type of nod Clemson would have gotten had they been the team in this conversation. I 100% believe it was Clemson, and they'd won a couple championships. So they've won a couple championships since 2016, and like that they would not have gotten left out. This was specifically about FSU, and I just think a bunch of casuals who are sitting up there on the college football playoff committee did not pay enough attention to this FSU defense and how good they played defensively. When you stack up all the resumes, honestly, Texas had the weakest resume. Despite the head-to-head between Alabama, if you stack up best wins, right, they had the weakest conference championship.
You beat Oklahoma State pretty handily. You beat Oklahoma head-to-head.
Right, but they had the weakest conference championship game. I mean, does Texas, even though they beat Alabama, they don't own a win better than Alabama beating Georgia. Right? If you're Georgia, you got 2 top 10 wins there. If you're FSU, again, you play the top 10 team in your SEC in your conference championship game, and you beat LSU to start the season. Look at where those teams were ranked when they played, and I'm telling you, everybody had a better resume than Texas. They're literally hanging their head. And then when you go back and look how many close games, they didn't dominate all season either. They squeaked out wins. Look at this last night, man. Down the stretch, they squeaked out a few wins against what I would say is a weaker schedule. So I'm not saying that Texas. I'm just saying there was definitely they had the strongest argument to be left out in my book. Right, almost equal to Bama's argument for being left out. What I thought was it would come down to one of the two. And in this particular scenario, you probably had to leave Bama out because you do have a head-to-head. You have a rare head-to-head between conference champions to judge who deserves to be in. And they stated by their own criteria, Caesar, that it doesn't matter when the game happened, head-to-head is head-to-head. That's what the committee chair said. Said it doesn't matter that it was earlier in the season. Head-to-head is head-to-head.
Do you think Oklahoma had a easier path? I mean, Texas had an easier path than Washington?
No, I don't think any. I think all. Okay, this is tough, right? This is tough. This is tough because they did have to beat Oregon twice, and that's difficult to do. But also, okay, so they had the same team as their top 10 matchup
outside of Oregon. Who else did they beat?
Yeah, I mean, they barely beat Washington State the week before, by 3 points. They needed a last-second field goal to win that game. Penix laid an egg in one of those games, and their running back had to go off for 255 so they could win it. They had a running back go for 255 yards. To me, the eye test says that Texas definitely had the tougher road. Right. To me, I think Texas had the tougher road. I would not make an argument that any Pac team has a harder road than anybody else in all college football. I might give some Mountain West teams a tougher road than anybody in the Pac. But you know how I feel about that conference. Right.
That's why I was like, you're saying this over Washington. But listen, let's switch gears. Let's talk Auburn.
Yeah.
There are a range of bowls that Auburn could potentially find themselves in. The most that I've been hearing people project Auburn towards has been the Music City Bowl in Nashville.
That's right.
If you don't want to be in Birmingham, obviously, and there's an opportunity for Auburn to get into the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. But the one that I'm hearing is Auburn against a Big Ten opponent, maybe Northwestern, maybe Wisconsin in the Music City. What are your thoughts about Auburn in the Music City, or just their bowl possibilities anyway?
I can tell you from talking to players that they don't want the Birmingham Bowl. So no more Birmingham Bowl. Now I know you're from Birmingham, and many of us love the city of Birmingham. Sorry, Deontay, but we don't want to go to your bowl game. Players don't want to go to your bowl game. They will go somewhere else. I think that Nashville is a great landing spot for this 6-6 team. Honestly, I think it's a great bowl draw, given how the bowls are kind of spread out now, because you have the New Year's Six that take up some of these other bowls regionally around us, yeah, I think it would be a great bowl destination. I think it should be the only serious, I think it should be the only serious bowl destination for Auburn. If you're the Music City Bowl, you definitely want Auburn. You know they will pack out that stadium. Auburn fans will buy tickets. There's a strong alumni base in Nashville, and you're 3 hours drive from Birmingham and 5 hours from Auburn. Literally everybody's going to show up to that game. It's going to be an amazing turnout for a bowl game. So to me, if you're the Music City Bowl, you can't afford to miss this chance. There's a lot of excitement around the program right now in recruiting. And this team is going to get extra practices and an extra game to figure out what they can do. Make no mistake, I'm telling you, if you look at what happens, look at the turnout for the Iron Bowl. Look at the turnout for these home games this season in an up and down season. You can't, to me, you just can't, for a mid to lower tier bowl, you cannot miss the opportunity to pack your stadium out by not selecting Auburn. You just can't. And if I were Hugh Freeze, that's where I would want the destination to be, because we know one thing about Hugh Freeze, Caesar. He don't want to go out west. He don't want to play in the cold. He said that before they went to Cal. You're like, I don't like the cold. You don't have to deal with a time difference. And, this is one state over, essentially, but far enough away that you can give your players an experience and play in a fairly well-known bowl game.
Yeah, and I think that if you're Auburn too, when you start looking ahead at opponents, the Duke's Mayo Bowl and the Music City Bowl, those are good bowls for this version of Auburn, this year's Auburn's football team, because you face potentially a Northwestern team that's also in transition. You're facing a Wisconsin program that's also in transition with a first-year head coach. So you're not facing an established team that you're going against. This is a good opportunity for a Hugh Freeze in year one to get to 7 wins. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a good opportunity for him to get to 7 wins in year one. He'd be above 500 essentially. This team, it can't be understated. This team didn't make a bowl game last year. A lot of people were disappointed about that. And there were a lot in flux. There was talk that if they had made a bowl game, they would have turned it down last year, based on some things that were going on in flux in the program. So they may have declined the bowl invite with Hugh Freeze just coming in, and Cadillac was the interim, and there were a lot of other things that the program felt they would have needed to focus on. So this year, in his first year, getting Auburn back to a bowl, because the year before you were in the Birmingham Bowl in Harsin's first year, lost to Houston. The next year, you miss a bowl game completely, which was sad for a lot of these kids. It was tough. And in year one, I just think that you can establish a lot of confidence with the guys that you have returning. We're going to talk about the portal later, and build some momentum going into spring ball, right? These are extra practices you get. They're invaluable, so this is an achievement for Hugh Freeze in year one. I mean, they were a bad win away from not making a bowl game at all this year. The way the season played out, nobody saw Auburn losing to New Mexico State, but it happened. Right, you had a chance to beat Bama at the last minute. You had a fortunate stretch of 3 games there from Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, Arkansas, where you were able to get those SEC wins. So you stacked 3 SEC wins. Disappointing loss versus New Mexico State, another disappointing loss versus Arkansas, but maybe you've had a little bit more time to prepare for this one, and you can look at the tape, Caesar, and see some things that you want to fix on paper headed into the spring. So it's rare, the matchup versus LSU was very disappointing because they had 2 weeks to prepare. And coming off a bye week, a lot of people expected it to look better than that coming off a bye week. Now we get to see what this staff can do with a team that they've had all year and a few weeks to prepare. Can they produce something, right? Again, we're going to talk about it here in a second about the portal, but is this an opportunity to get your quarterbacks some work and improve your offensive scheme? It seems as if the staff may remain intact for the most part for next year. But accountability demands some change based on what we saw offensively, and this is a good chance. So this is huge for them. It's a huge opportunity.
Given the opportunity, we know in these games, Mike, that some players who have NFL aspirations tend to opt out of certain games.
Yes.
Hugh Freeze has been very vocal about players, or he's been vocal in recent days. He was asked about it. He said it's tough for him. He basically believes that players should finish out the season with their team before going on to the next step in terms of pursuing the opportunity to get into the NFL. Do you foresee, or do you have a feeling about Auburn losing players in terms of opting out for the bowl game and the impact that could potentially have?
Well, in terms of what Hugh Freeze said, look, Hugh's not going to pay their paycheck if they blow a knee out and never get a shot, right? Like, if you're a player at this point, you have to do what's best for you. I know fans don't like it, but it's the Music City Bowl. It's not the college football playoff. It's not a New Year's Six. The only argument that you could make for a player risking it, if they're draft eligible, is that they're trying to improve their draft stock by having a good game, right? But it's still about moving on to the next thing. So we have some guys like Jalen Simpson and those guys who will be in the Senior Bowl.
DJ James
will be in there, right? There's a couple other guys who's going to be in the Senior Bowl. And we know what that is. That is kind of like a pre-draft evaluation. It's an opportunity for them to go out and show off for scouts and teams. And at this point, that is more important than being in a meaningless bowl for Auburn, right? Like, ultimately, we're not hanging a banner for the Music City Bowl. So, I get it. It's their choice if they want to be there for their team. And I understand Hugh Freeze's, as a coach, wanting your best players to be there because he wants the dub. But, like I said, after that last game of the regular season, to me, your obligation to school first is done, unless it's for the playoff, right, or an SEC championship or some kind of championship. Other than that, they've got to protect their health and not lose a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to go on to the next level and live their dream, right? You're talking about risking your dream for one more game in college. Yeah, I don't see why that would be smart.
We have definitely seen examples of this where players have hurt their draft stock because they played in a bowl game and got injured. So it is definitely something for players and their families to consider if they're on the cusp of being able to make life generational transforming money. Before we move on to comments and get to the break, my G, multiple choice. Who is responsible for Bama getting into the college football playoff?
Auburn, 100%. It's so funny you said that. My inbox is blowing up right now. People saying this is your fault, Auburn. You could have prevented this. Only you can prevent Bama forest fires. We lit the match by not winning that game, by giving up 4th and 31, and it's unfortunate because it would have ended a lot of this debate. I think honestly, what sucks is for FSU is they would have logicked in Georgia, I think, somehow over FSU if Bama had 2 losses, but still won the SEC championship game. Right? They would have used the exact same logic to say they didn't earn it, they're not in. Right? It just so happened that it was a little easier because it was a 1-loss conference champion, but I think Georgia somehow, because it was a close loss to Bama, would have still gotten in over FSU. So yeah, this is definitely.
I think that would have been even more egregious, Mike.
Yeah, it would have been, but they would have done it. I'm telling you, they would have done it. They're telling you what they thought of FSU, because what you think of FSU doesn't change, right? If that makes sense.
There's weeping and gnashing of teeth right now, and people are saying this is a bad look for college football. This pales in comparison if you put a 1-loss non-conference champion Georgia over an undefeated conference champion in Florida State this year.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they would. The logic, what I tried to explain to people on Twitter was, people were explaining to me head, and like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, we're talking about people, though. Talking about human beings with independent thought. So what I'm saying is, I'm looking at the precedents that they've set where they've used weird logic to backdoor other teams in before and leave other teams out. And listen, when we go to 12, this doesn't stop, Caesar. When we go to 12 teams, this
right.
debate does not stop. It just shifts to the back end of the playoff. So every team that finishes like 18 to 10 is going to be in a fight for their life to make the playoff. And we're going to be having the same discussion about some team that finished 13th, but everybody thought should have been 10th, or had a head-to-head versus somebody who made the playoff. It's going to happen.
We do it every March, right? Where
Yeah.
a team gets left out of the big dance. It's a big pool, right? But
The
someone is angry because they're going to the NIT.
Yeah, the problem is that you have so many college football teams, and you can't play a 64-team tournament. You just can't, because ultimately what happens in a 6 or 68 now, right? You're leaving out teams nobody cares about mostly at the end, or schools nobody's ever heard of, right? In the top 25 in college football, those are brands. Somebody's getting jobbed, and it's going to be a story. So, like I said, this conversation never goes away. It just shifts. But they don't have to worry about pissing off traditional powers for the most part, right? The probability of that goes down if the same teams continue to win. Now, what happens inevitably when Georgia or Alabama is on the back end of this conversation, struggling to get in the playoff? I think the same biases apply. But it's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's Ohio State, it's Michigan, right? Like, you got to put those teams in, right? It just shifts, man. I hate it. Somebody's going to be a loser in this discussion, no matter what. But this year, it just happened to be Florida State, and I think that's sad for those kids.
So about Wednesday, maybe Thursday of last week, I had about healed from the Iron Bowl loss, but I think that scab just opened back up, knowing that Bama is in because of us.
Yeah.
I can't
could have handled that. We could have handled that for all college football.
I'm now back in pain. All right, let's get to some of the comments before we get to the break. Really Cozy says, "Do you guys think Perry and Cam are starters next year?"
I think that's tough, right? I think
first off, Perry and Cam need to sign their NLI first before I know we're excited about this, but they need to sign that first. But to answer the question, I think they stand a good shot. But Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, Cam Coleman, I think, has the better shot of the two because of the type of receiver he is. You've heard Hugh Freeze repeatedly talk about range. He likes range. If you go to my Twitter, I posted videos of Cam Coleman catching all kinds of balls in high school, like shifting his body weight midair, jump balls, mossing guys. Cam Coleman is a complete receiver. He's got decent speed. He's got good height. He's got good jumping ability. He's got great range. And I think that is the type of wide receiver that Hugh Freeze hits, his prototypical wide receiver. He's told us. And then go back and look at the DK Metcalfs and these guys. If he puts on some weight and puts on a little muscle and doesn't lose much speed, I do think Cam is going to be an early enrollee. Perry Thompson is not. And which is why I kind of put him behind the 8 ball. He won't be here until after the spring. Okay. So, give Cam the heads up, man. I think Walker White is going to be an early enrollee. There's a few guys coming in this class. They're going to get in early, and we'll see how they do.
Okay. Ben Bloodworth says, "We knew Bama would be in. Rich people need more money."
Greg Sankey made that call to the committee last night. They were all just eating their pizza trying to decide. And Sankey says, y'all know what to do. You don't want to face daddy's wrath. They put Bama in. This man, he's a real power in college football. I don't know how anybody doesn't know that.
Yeah. Gene Davis says, "Auburn family, stop rushing to got Bama in. This is our burden to live with."
Yeah, look, man, people were down on Ron Roberts because of how that game ended. It was his defense that even got us there to begin with. It's his defense that has been just about stellar all year. I mean, yes, you'd like to have that one back. I understand the thinking. Had Hugh Freeze grabbed me at a press conference to diagram this out, it was funny. He made me stay at one place. He was like, and you could he was like reliving the moment. He was like, man, if we had just, I'm like, and I'm just like, yeah, I get it, coach. You fucked up. It was a cool interaction now with the head coach of Auburn. But I
I didn't get a chance to picture. I saw King Dunlap on a podcast, and he was just like, "Why do you rush 3? I'm doing cover 0." Of course, everyone has their thoughts on how we should have defended that. It wasn't exactly a Hail Mary type of scenario, so I would like to bring pressure on him to speed his clock. But again, we're reliving that whole situation all over again.
Look, I mean, Jalen Milroe has improved since the year has gone on. If you look at that throw, look at some of the throws he made in this SEC championship game. Same kinds of throws on the run to a spot. Like, I mean, give him some credit for improving as the season has gone on.
Listen, Georgia gave him time to throw at times, and he was dropping dimes. You don't want to give him time to find somebody.
You've got to flush him out of the pocket, and you've got to get him on the move. He's a dynamic athlete. He's going to be most of your edge defenders to the edge fast, right? Yeah. And so Georgia had the horses to get back there on a couple. They had like 5 sacks on Jalen Milroe yesterday. Yeah. So it's not as if they were not getting to him at all, but they didn't get to him enough, and he made it happen.
Yeah. Ben Bloodworth says, ironic that the ACC voted to keep this year 4 teams.
Foresight. Man, they did not have the foresight to think we might be on the outside. But yeah, maybe if they had expanded this year, you would have been in and you would have helped these kids. I did not see. I didn't want to wait. Just expand it now, right? But they're expanding the playoff the year the SEC expands, and the symmetry there is not lost on me.
Right. But again, I wonder about your programs like FSU, who every time there's talks of conference realignment, their name comes up, especially in ties with the SEC. So it just makes you wonder, is this pouring gas on the fire there? Ben Bloodworth comes back and says, it's Bama's obsession. It's Bama obsession. Bama is in because they're Bama. Texas in because they beat Bama. It's madness.
Yeah. Look, it's really that simple. It's really that simple. But also they're in because Jordan Travis got hurt. If Jordan Travis doesn't get hurt and those FSU wins look more impressive down the stretch, I think they stay in. But this is clearly about them not looking like the same team they were earlier in the season. So that left the door open for them to, sideways logic Texas and Alabama into this. And it's sad for those kids because all they can do is, if you play defense on that stellar defense, Jordan Travis getting hurt, your job doesn't change. You still have to go out there and make sure that the other team doesn't score more points than your team. That's what they did. And Isaac, man, maybe he'll give you all a special watch the film on FSU. I don't know, but that defense has been good all year. They have. And because they weren't able to move the ball as effectively, it was lost on people because in today's college football, we focus overly on offense. And dominant defensive teams aren't as common.
Well, it's one of those things because of Jordan Travis, because of Keon Coleman, their receivers, they were stealing a lot of the headlines. So many people would hear FSU and think offense, not realizing that it was their defense. That was also a big part of why they were undefeated this year. So
yeah. Let me tell you something. There may not be 2 better defensive teams other than Florida. There may be another better defensive team better than Florida State than Georgia and Alabama. What we saw in the SEC championship was 2 good offensive teams go versus 2 good defensive teams. And it produced the type of game I would expect. A game in the mid-20s, right? That's when you've got good team. Everybody's scoring, but nobody's scoring out of control, right? Sacks are being had, interceptions are being made, plays are being made by the defense. But it's not killing scoring completely. And FSU had that type of defense this year. You won't be able to convince me otherwise. It got overshadowed by Jordan Travis going down. If you haven't read his statement on Twitter, I highly recommend retweeting it. It was an awesome statement that he made about, his team and how he felt like, this team was more than just me, pretty much was the essence of the tweet.
Mario Nettles became a member. Hey. Welcome, good sir. We're going to get to the break, but before we do, we've had a great discussion about the college football playoff, Auburn's chances in terms of what bowl they can get selected for. Definitely want you to share this content with others so they can chime in and give their thoughts. Smash the like button while you're here. And for those who are new to our channel, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel. Let's pay some bills. We'll come back and talk about the transfer portal.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. When you work out, grill out, and chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com. auburnsports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn Sports, head over to auburnsports.com. And our giveaway sponsor, GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. If you want the best in the business at restaurant logistics, head over to gwt2energy.com.
Guys, become a patron member, join our channel as a paid member, and help support the work that we're doing here at the War Report. If you like the Fireside content, we're bringing you even more of that content, but your patron memberships help make that happen. So become a patron. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by gifting a membership. Hit that gifted membership button. YouTube chooses these at random. So if you interact with our channel at a high level, but you have not made the decision to become a patron just yet, then you are likely to be on the receiving end of one of these patron memberships. So get in there, give away the gift of the War Report. I know people that receive these really appreciate it. So it's great when you guys do. This is a great program YouTube has started. As always, we're giving away a mug. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments. This is brought to you by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. GWT2 Energy Consulting Services sponsors all of our giveaways. So get into that drawing right here. I don't see a ton of y'all in here right now. There's over 300 people watching. So get to hashtagging and get into this drawing. We will draw at the 1 hour mark. This show is brought to you in part by Manscaped. Our friends over at Manscaped have been working day and night to bring you below the waist grooming experience like none other with their brand new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Talking about next generation trimmer with interchangeable blade heads for whatever shade your mind can imagine. Upgrade your grooming game to the Ultrasphere this year by going to manscaped.com for 20% off, plus free shipping with code RAPPORT. High tech for low places, Manscaped. Also want to give a quick shout out to the War Report Podcast Network. Guys, listen to us on podcast, the Auburn Express, the Uptempo, College Loop, Just a Sec. Great audio-only content that we're bringing you guys every single week. And then last but certainly not least, Golden's Cast Iron sponsors this. Visit goldencastiron.com/rapport and use code get your weight up for 50% off your weights. Code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. They make great products over at Golden's Cast Iron. They're wonderful sponsors of the War Report. These are lifetime products. These are things that these are things you can hand down to your children that they're selling over here at Golden's Cast Iron. We love their products. I use the grill. B has the fire pit, man. We love Golden's Cast Iron and the products that they make. If you want, buy local, man. Support local companies. They're a great community member in the Auburn, Phoenix City, Opelika area, and we love them for the work that they're doing, not only with us but in the community.
Mike G, also, before we get into the next topic, shout out HelloFresh for us, please, sir.
HelloFresh. HelloFresh.com/50rapport. Use code 50rapport to get your HelloFresh order. HelloFresh, I use HelloFresh. B uses HelloFresh. We've got a lot of HelloFresh experience here at the War Report. They make amazing products over there. Kickstart a fresh fall routine with HelloFresh. HelloFresh handles all the meal planning and shopping to deliver everything you need to cook up a tasty meal right at home. They do the hard part, and you get to take the credit. So use code 50rapport to get your discount on that order. I think, use code 50rapport to get your discount on that order. HelloFresh.com. Definitely some good stuff, man. Nutritious and delicious, Caesar.
I must agree. I've done HelloFresh myself, so appreciate that, Mike. Listen, we're joined by B. Will. We're getting in here to talk portal. I'm not talking about basketball right now. There's other things that we can talk about that are much more productive at this point in the day.
Okay.
Even though B. Will said his basketball season is actually tomorrow will be portal season, B. Will. So let's talk about that. Okay. I want to start with the defensive side of the ball. When you talk about defensive line, Marcus Harris, does Marcus Harris have a COVID year?
Yes. His freshman season was 2020 at Kansas, but yes, he does have a fresh COVID year if he wants to use it.
I don't foresee him actually using it. I think he's more than likely moving on. We did have Eniche Sledge announce that he was going into the portal last week. I think there was another. I don't think that other person. Steven, is there Steven Johnson?
Yes.
Steven Johnson, he went into the portal as well. So
Yes.
we already have had 2 defections from the defensive line. Gentlemen, when you think about the defensive line, I don't foresee any other defections. You just never know in this day and age. I know people were excited about some of the pickups in last recruiting season with the guys like Darren Reed, Darren Reed Jr., Wilkie Denard. I don't foresee those guys entering the portal, but you just never know.
Right.
When you look at the defensive line, is this an area where Auburn can go back into the portal this year to beef up that line, given some of the departures that we have this year?
I mean, could they? Hugh Freeze said they always want to bring in competitive talent to continue to get better at any position. So, yeah, they could. I'm trying to think about how many guys we have in the defensive line room who haven't even really sniffed the field. Like Darren Reed didn't really get any playing time. So you expect he'll get that shot coming up in the spring. The same for Wilkie Denard. He played some garbage time snaps, but he didn't really get that shot. I always wonder if we're saying goodbye to some of the guys who have already chosen to transfer, like a Steven Johnson, like an EJ Sledge. I mean, they may have seen the field, but not for significant snaps. And the reason I say that, they're practicing with these guys, right? Like our coaches are looking at these guys in practice all the time. Some of them may be on the scout team, so they're actually getting to see what they can do against our ones. But I always wonder if we're giving up on some guys too soon. When I say giving up, I mean not giving them a shot to start or get in the rotation, because I don't know if y'all remember this, but Marcus Harris was a 2-star recruit, which is why he was at Kansas. He's a 2-star recruit, and he is leaving Auburn as our best defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman this year. Best performing, best graded interior defensive lineman this year. Guys take time to develop. You got to give him a shot, get him on the field. And at Kansas, he had that opportunity. So he got to work it out, find himself, and play past what his star rating was. I can't help but wonder if some of the other guys who are here aren't going to get that opportunity. And that makes me a little sad. Y'all know I'm big on the guys who chose Auburn first. And I always want the best for those guys and get them to get their shot. But I know that they're big on beefing up the talent. So are there defensive linemen in the portal available who are difference makers? Now, there are plenty of G5 guys who will be looking to take the next step up to Power 5, to the SEC, I'm sure. I think there's always value there. Y'all were talking about the FSU defense. They got a couple of G5 guys. Jared Verse, one of their defensive, I don't know if he's a lineman or an end. He may do a little bit of both. He was a G5 guy. He was one of the best players on that defense. That is absolutely insane. And he's a G5 guy. There's always going to be value there. Look at the guys who end up winning Defensive Player of the Year in their conference, who end up with the most sacks in their conference. There's always going to be value there. Is our staff on the hunt for it? Are they already on the trail for those guys? I mean, I would hope so. I don't know. I don't know what else to look for.
Answer this for me. Let's just talk defense and just period. For guys who we project to be returning, who can Auburn not afford to lose to the portal from our current roster on defense? I'm about to throw out some names. You got a Eugene Asante. You have a guys like Austin Keys, who did transfer the year prior.
Right, he's not going anywhere.
But you got guys like J.D. Rim. You got guys like Keontae, who could go to the Go Pro.
Yeah.
Who are some guys that Auburn needs to roll out a sales pitch to? We can't afford to lose you. We need you back contributing. Who are some guys that stands out in your mind? Guys, I'm thinking about that I never got a chance to see. Austin Osbury. Remember, that was a big pickup for us a few years back.
Yeah, we thought it was.
So who are some guys that Auburn staff needs to say, hey, we need you here? They need to be having those conversations.
Man, I think the most important retention needs to happen with Asante and Keys, because we don't want to have to turn that over so soon. Like, we just found Keys just got back, and things seemed to gel once Keys got back to join Asante. Those two guys being your starting linebackers allows the young guys you coming in, because we got linebackers coming in. Linebackers, not a problem. Highly touted freshman linebackers and rusher with Joseph Phillips and Waller. Listen, we have edge and linebackers locked down as far as coming in. You don't want to put them out there week one and say, hey, go be everything you need to be in the SEC right now. You need to keep the linebackers that are seniors, going to be seniors next year, get them back. They both have something to show as far as their draftability. I think Asante could go and get on a practice squad right now, but he needs to shine at the highest level and not just in the defense. That's just okay. I think next year would be this year was his coming out party. Next year would be his, I don't know what the proper metaphor was. He needs to climb the draft charts, though, is what he needs to do. And I think next year he could do that. The same thing for Keys. He didn't have the season he wanted to have due to injury. Come back, prove your draft stock status, and let these young guys grow up behind you. Don't put those young guys on Front Street just yet. I think it has to be Asante and Keys are the most important retainees.
Mike G, what are your thoughts about the defense in terms of who needs to be on this roster come next season?
I think B nailed it. I mean, I don't have anything different there to add. Same names. Ultimately, retain as many of the guys B just named as you can, and build from there. They've got some highly touted kids coming in this class. I don't know, like, the college football is so physically demanding. I don't know how many of those dudes would have a chance to contribute immediately.
Right.
But ultimately, I think that there's a good shot, right, that Auburn can be decent next year defense. Some of the names that they're losing worry me a little bit. I mean, you're that secondary, man. Like, you're losing some guys that aren't going to be able to come back. So, we'll see how they do defensively. That was the strength of this team this year. So you need to figure out a way to build on that unit, not only through the portal but with the retention. The kid that they had a big defensive land in the portal. The guy's name is escaping me right now. I'll think of it in
this past year.
No.
Oh.
But yeah. Anyway, I'll tell you, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how Ron Roberts reloads this defense. I did a great job this year, I think. Overall, I would give him, based on what he accomplished with the guys that he had, I would give him an A. He was not deep. They just weren't deep. But he found a way to get the most out of the guys that he had. I expect him to continue to do that. So what's that going to involve? Just like B said, it's going to be some guys that didn't get a ton of time stepping up into roles and, filling the shoes that are being left open here on the defense. Auburn cannot afford, in my opinion, to take a significant step back defensively next year. They just can't. I don't know how this thing is going to go offensively, but I know defensively they need to do their best to hold serve. That means holding on to the guys you have.
So you're saying that Auburn, it's very likely, and I actually, if you're saying this, I agree. Auburn has to be the strength of this team next year as well, which means you're going to have some guys anchoring this defense who were productive this year on the roster next year.
Correct.
I mean, the defense has to be the strength.
The defense has to be.
You said Auburn. But it was like,
okay.
Auburn's going to be the strength of this team. Yeah.
The defense has to be the strength of the team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they need to continue to lead from that side of the football. So just retain all your guys. Right now, what we know about the staff is that they went into self-recruit mode as soon as the Iron Bowl was over. They immediately started talking. Hugh Freeze gave us an extra Monday press conference where he talked about re-recruiting your current roster. That's a reality of college football. So he went into re-recruit my roster mode, along with recruiting kids out of high school, because they obviously went out and they landed Cam Coleman on the other side of the ball. But like I said, defensively, it's clear. You know who you're losing. Ike and I went over all the seniors that don't have eligibility left. It's defensive heavy. A lot of defensive guys that are leaving that were definitely leaders on this team this year. So, like I said, you just got to relock and reload.
I'm going to grab some of the comments before we switch over to the other side of the ball. Cleveland Brown says, and Nasili Kite come back. I think Nasili Kite,
he's
I think he said what now?
I think he's done. I think he's out of availability.
So he didn't have a COVID year?
I think this was his COVID year. 23, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not 100% sure, but Ike was looking at that and he said that he was done. So I do think he's done.
Okay. Lawrence Robinson mentions Woodyard as someone that they need to keep.
Man, I don't think. Unfortunately, again,
he has not been what we hoped to this point.
I mean, has he even had an opportunity to show what he can or cannot do at this point? Like, I don't know. I have no idea if he's been given a serious look. It seems that we went with Larry Nixon. Of course, he came in here. Tolan had to step out, and we gave some reps to what's his name, linebacker. Could have went to Stanford, but came here. Why am I missing on his name? Very smart guy. Wesley Steiner. Steiner got those reps. Nixon got those reps, and for a little bit, Cam Riley got those reps. Woodyard has not been in position to make an impact yet. Now, again, our coaches are looking at these players not only in practice, but on scout team. Some of the scouting on Woodyard was that he's just not fast enough. He's a hitter. He's a thumper coming downhill. If we're playing, if it's 2008, if it's 2004, he'd be a great starting middle linebacker. But in 2023, with the pass attacks that we see with the speed that's at the skill positions and even at tight end now, maybe that was the difference, the reason he couldn't get on the field. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, Lawrence, we didn't see him, and I don't know if they need to retain him because we don't know what he is or isn't. We just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah. Black Wing says can't lose Keontae.
I mean, we can.
I agree. I don't think you lose him to the portal. I just don't know if he's going to the portal. He may go pro. Mike, if you're talking, I can't hear you. I'm gonna grab one more when Mike gets situated. Anthony Grant says McLeod needs to come back as well.
Man, I hope
he does have some eligibility.
I hope he does. And maybe the games he missed will be the impetus, knowing that he can boost his draft stock. I think McLeod is actually a borderline, probably like 5th or 6th round or something like that. Just the speed and the power that he shows when he does rush the passer, but he didn't do it quite enough. A full season of that, I think, gets him 3rd, 2nd round if he can show out. So I think McLeod comes back. There are a few players who you can boost your stock by coming back. One thing that actually may be huge is that Keontae Scott got injured late in the game. Does that affect his ability to go to the Senior Bowl, to play in front of those pro coaches and contribute? Like that's part of the allure of the Senior Bowl is you're going to get in front of NFL coaches and you're going to get to practice in front of them so they can see you one-on-one against other senior players that are good. So it's not like, hey, you play great against some G5 teams and you're a P5 school. No, the Senior Bowl can actually take you from undrafted 6th or 7th round to drafted and 3rd or 4th round if you're practicing in front of pros. If he can't do that, then I think that he may have a harder decision to make than we think. If he can go to Senior Bowl practice, if he's good enough, if it was just a slight shoulder injury, then I think he probably goes and maximizes his potential in the draft this year. But I mean, I'm with y'all. Keontae Scott is a critical piece to what we do here. Our defense got better when he came back. I would love to have him, but man, you still want these kids to do what's best for them, and I'd understand if he went.
Let's switch over to offense, and I'll start with this comment. D-Lev says, I love the tweet by Damari Austin about not leaving to go to a winning team. He'll just grind until we're that winning team. With that said, is he someone that we think... I still can't hear you, Mike. Can you hear me?
No, not yet. Someone with that mic.
Still can't hear you. Someone with that mic, Mike. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I was a little worried about Damari. All signs point to, like, this was supposed to be Jarquez's year to go pro. But the offense was so poor, I don't think he could do that. So with Jarquez returning, that running back room gets a little bit more crowded. And then you got the young guy, Cobb, coming up. And I thought they showed him a lot of favor this year. Not down the stretch, but, if you're Damari, you're sitting here thinking about the division of snaps.
Mm-hmm.
And how they played Jarquez down the stretch. And now in the Iron Bowl, the carries evened out a little bit more. But, man, it'll be interesting.
I liked how they used the rotation in the Iron Bowl.
Yeah,
That's what I thought
worked.
they were going to do.
Yeah, I liked it. It worked. it was just everything was rough to start the season. So Damari was obviously the lead back to start the season with Jarquez being out. But the offensive struggles were man, it was killing them. And you gotta remember too, this line is going to be different next year. This offensive line. Now I thought they played fairly well this year, all things considered. There was no point at this year where I just thought, oh, we just can't protect the quarterback at all, right? Like it was about, and when you look at the pressure rate stats, they were like middle to top half of the SEC, right, in protection. So I don't know. Damari, I was worried about for a second. He definitely had a decision to make, but wisdom would suggest patience, guys, because hopping in the portal, man, running for the next school is not always the answer. And I don't know if he got enough tape to be like a top portal, prospect if he entered the portal. So
especially at running back. Running back is just a position where you don't even have to be highly talented. I don't know if teams are going to commit NIL money and resources to running backs. It's like, hey, man, if our line's good enough, we can put almost anybody back there. There are very few running backs in this day and age, I think, make more of a difference than the system and the offensive line. System and offensive line will produce you great results at your running back position. And there are special running backs out there. There are good ones. There are great ones. There are some that are just okay. But if your system and your offensive line are correct, honestly, man, you can do it with whoever you got on your roster. So I think we got something good here with the running back room. I can't wait to see Quez and Damari and a more experienced Cobb. Man, give some snaps to Sean Jackson, man. What did he do to not get snaps? I wanted to see him, take somebody's life out their body, run over him. He didn't get that shot, man. We are set at running back. I see why they, parted ways with Fat Burnett. Listen, we're good. We're good at running back. I hope the whole room comes back intact and beats up the SEC next year.
Indeed. So let's talk tight end position group. The guy that I want Auburn to fight to hold on to is Michael Riley Ducker.
As well. Yes.
That's my selection here. Do we know now? Ike had the list. He was looking at people. I think Tyler Fromm is done, or does he?
Tyler Fromm was going to enter the portal.
He was going to enter the portal.
Yeah.
Luke Deal.
Luke Deal is going to return.
He's going to return. And I wanted him to. Brandon Frazier.
Have not heard. I think he actually has a COVID year to use if he wants to.
Yeah, unclear.
Yeah.
Okay. Michael Riley is the guy who I really want to make sure this coaching staff brings back. Your thoughts, gentlemen?
Michael Riley Ducker will return for the next season. He'll be back. So, I'm safe to say this. I've actually spoken to him, so he will return for this season. He was in a group of guys who they all had a decision to make. Rivaldo Fairweather, I think, coming into the room, it changes the math. And then when you look at how they played the tight ends this year, when he did get in the game, he showed a lot of promise. He's definitely the best blocking tight end Auburn has on the roster.
Right.
So he's got to come in and just handle business, and hopefully he'll get a chance to get some playing time. I love Luke, man, but he didn't catch a pass last year. Not a single one.
Really?
He didn't catch one pass last year.
Some of those weren't on him because he was missed frequently.
Yeah. 0 catches last year. And, he's got, to step up his blocking game as well for the amount of time that he was getting. So, if you're Micah, you're just sitting there looking at all that and you're talking to the coaching staff post Iron Bowl and saying, hey, look, what are we doing here? What's the deal? Right? Am I going to be able to step up here and earn some time? Or what do I need to do? What more would you like to see from me for me to earn more time on the field? Right. Rivaldo Fairweather is a dynamic talent, but he didn't exactly set the world on fire this year. No. Right? He had some disappointing drops, some balls that you expect a guy that they talked about so highly to make. And man, Mike hasn't missed a catch since high school, man. Like this kid can catch. He can catch a lot. And I just think, use him. He's a great talent. He's got good speed. He's got great size. He's a smart player. When you talk to him, the intelligence shows. It just
seems like a dog in the making too.
Yeah. You just can't always favor experience over youth and ability.
Right.
And,
not even. Wait. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I know what you're about to say. So I'll say this quickly. Like, sometimes you just got to get the dogs on the field.
Yes.
Right. That's it. That's bottom line. Sometimes you just have to play more talented player. And Hugh Freeze is probably a little old school in that if he could get a guy to take a red shirt, he would probably prefer it. And but I think it's time for Mike O'Reilly, because if you're going to use the experience argument, the guy's going to be out of eligibility before he gets a shot.
Right.
Are you you recruit the next guy that's got one more year of experience than him? At some point, this is kind of the same discussion at quarterback if you think about it. At some point, you got to stop. Some dude you recruited out of high school needs to be the heir apparent. But if you're going to go to the portal every single year to bring in the next guy, you're going to be stuck in that cycle. And that dude's going to come in presumably with a bunch of starting experience. And then kids like Holden and Walker just sitting on the bench like, okay, what I got to do to beat out this dude who's got 2 years starting at the P5 level?
Right.
You brought me here. Play me, please.
Yeah. Gentlemen, let's before we get out of this segment here, let's talk receivers. A much maligned group. I expect some departures from this group. I think Mike G knows full well who those departures are. I may not want to say anything.
Stop smiling, Mike. Stop
I'll
smiling.
I'll leave that to you, Mike. But obviously, we understand what Auburn is expected to bring in through the recruiting class, the 2024 recruiting class. Definitely got some dogs in the making from that group. From the portal standpoint, in terms of departures and maybe bringing any guys in, what do we think happens here?
Look, Jay Fair is your most important re-signing, if you ask me. If you're sticking with the whole experience theme you've been with, you don't lose a whole year's worth of experience there, because outside of him, I think him and Caleb Burton, I think, are the ones that they fight to hold on to. And everybody else is expendable. Now,
Caleb transferred here, though.
Right. Yeah. But you understand what I'm saying? Those are the two receivers that you keep that are going to be here. Javaris technically has a COVID year.
Right.
Okay.
He can return. But he's going to be possibly looking at options as well, too. I mean, he's got enough tape to go someplace and play. Yeah, as long as it's a solid spot with a good passing game. But I think he could go earn a starting spot somewhere if he decided he wanted to transfer. They've been fighting every year to hold on to him as well, too. Like every offseason.
He jumped into the portal one year, didn't he?
He was trying to go to Ole Miss, but he got in too late, or he need to pass a class or something. It didn't work.
Yeah. Look, someone asked me on Twitter if I felt like the young guys had a chance to play early. And, we talked about this kind of at the top of the show. I feel like if anybody has a chance to play early, it's going to be Cam Coleman. But ultimately, what has happened there, I mean, I think Hooks and Shorter are done. Both those guys had 1 year left to play, so they're out of here. You played Hooks a ton. So there's going to be some spots to fill. And I think that they may fight to hold on to Javarius, Jay, and obviously Caleb will be here. And then Omari's gone. And outside of that, I mean, you got to refill this room. And maybe that's part of what Cam Coleman was looking at, in addition to the fact that Jimbo got fired and Texas A&M was going to be the same program. Like, I could walk in there and start day one on the outside, because who are they going to have? right? Marcus Davis went to go visit with him on Sunday, and I'm pretty sure he just told him who was leaving. And he probably just broke down the roster like, look, man, when you come in, and you're going to be an early enrollee in the spring, bro, you're it. You're going to be the dude. The only way you're not is by your own doing. Yeah. If you mess up, if you don't do the things you're supposed to do, if you don't work hard. But yeah, I see those three, and then you build around them, because quite honestly, how could it be worse than what you saw this year?
That's right.
Right. How could starting those freshmen be worse than what you saw this year? You're bringing in probably the best wide receiver class in the country. Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane, Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson. And then the talk is this kid Ryan Williams, the 5-star, is reclassifying.
Maybe reclassifying, which improves Auburn's chances to get him if he does reclassify.
Yep, and then jumps in here early and is like, hey, let me jump in on all this free playing time y'all handing out.
What a if that happens, and we're already here.
Crazy.
What an amazing year one recruiting at the P5 level for Marcus Davis.
Now all you need is somebody to throw them the ball, man. Like, this is gonna matter.
Well, that brings us to that topic before that brings us to the QB situation. Obviously, the QB room as it currently stands won't be the same QB room. We know there will be at least one departure. I think we're curious to hear about Holden Gerner. Ephesians 2:8-9 says Jay Fair gone. He thinks Jay Fair is gone. Lawrence thinks Camden is gone. Definitely want to get those before we went to QB. But gentlemen, what happens? What do you think happens here?
All right, so
I like it when he said, "All right."
He gets excited because he be knowing something, but he be waiting for the alley so he could go ahead, Mike, do your thing, man.
Here's the reality of NIL. You spent a boatload of money on Peyton Thorne. And it maybe didn't work out to the level of dollar you paid, but to some extent, you're stuck with that decision. Because I personally don't believe Auburn can afford to go out and get a portal QB worth bringing in that will be a guaranteed hit without severely upsetting the balance, dynamic, and projection of your QB room. So at some point, you have to break the portal QB cycle, guys. You do. I mean, look at these other schools. These guys, people were down on Milroe to start the season. He lost his job for a game. He won it back. And look what he's doing now. Homegrown. Ewers got into Texas early enough that they could try to do something with him. But ultimately, I mean, I'm just saying you have to be able, you got to recruit. And if you're to me, I don't want to see Walker White not get a shot. Right. For as much as we've heard about him and it's talked about, come on.
He's getting a shot.
And I want to see him get a shot with these receivers. I personally think Auburn does not bring in a QB in this cycle. And under the condition that Holden Gerner returns. Holden Gerner decides he's going to return to this QB room. It's most likely that we'll see Auburn roll with Peyton Thorne QB1, Holden 2, and true freshman 3 in case of emergency.
So let me ask you this. If Holden Gerner stays, what is it that you're saying to Holden Gerner at this point?
You are
get him to say.
You are 100% QB 2 with the option to step up to 1 if something goes sideways or Peyton really craps the bed, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You were promising him that he is as solid a QB2 as QB2 can be. But you used the experience argument against him last year, so how does he overcome it? You didn't give him a shot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what do you say to him?
Yeah.
Are you promising him he's a guy in the driver's seat when Peyton Thorne leaves, or is he going to have a chance to compete with Peyton Thorne?
Well, here's the deal, too. It's not just about what they're promising him. It's about what his prospects are. Also, what would be holding him here is the fact that he cannot just transfer to another program and be guaranteed anything either. So is it better for you to stay here, work hard and hope for the best, or go someplace else where you have to make a mark? Unless these kids are willing to take a step back in the level of program that they want to go to, guys, nothing's going to be guaranteed to you. We saw TJ had to do it. He got 2 shots at 2 Power 5 schools, and then he was like, Texas State it is.
Yep.
Top 15 passer in the NCAA. Yep. Beat Baylor. They beat some Power 5 schools this year. Now, do I think TJ Finley is the best quarterback ever was? No. My point is that he knew he had to get some tape, and his camp knew exactly what he had to do to get some tape, because he could not just transfer to another Power 5 program after not winning the job. You know what I mean? Winning the job, losing the job, and doing what he did at 2 Power 5 programs and think that was going to work out. If you're holding, the math is different for you, but you still have the same types of worries. You can't just walk into another program and be, he didn't have anything on tape. Now he's a solid Division I talent. But if you're walking into another Power 5 school, you're either taking a step down in the level of school or to step down in the group of 5 to group of 5. Kind of like Sean Shivers went to Indiana, and it was Indiana, right? Like, of course, he's going to walk in there and play. It's Indiana. Does Holden want to do that? If the answer is no, then you stay. Because his options are group of 5, terrible school with no talent, but you'll play. Or stay here. That's the math for Holden Geriner. And if he stays, I think the coaching staff takes his experience that he has in his system, and you just roll with him for next year, because I honestly, they've been coaching for year 3 this whole time.
Yeah.
So I anticipate next year will be another stopgap year where they just try to get through it.
Here's where I disagree, though. I disagree. You are going to have 5-star Perry Thompson, 5-star Cam Coleman, 2 dynamic and not to be overlooked. I think either Bryce Kane or Malcolm Simmons would have been, could potentially have been the best wide receiver in any of our previous 3 recruiting classes. Mm-hmm. You cannot waste their time. Now, you came in here and you didn't think much of the wide receiver room. We had our troubles at wide receiver before Hugh Freeze got here. You brought in a bunch of other guys that were group of 5 or Division II, with Shane Hooks. And you made the decision, we're just going to see how it goes. You can't, let's just see how it goes with Cam Coleman, who would, assuming that he signs, will have a get out of jail free card to transfer with anytime he wants. Yep. Or Perry Thompson or Bryce Kane. Mm-hmm. The pressure is on Hugh Freeze. Now, I agree that he's playing for the best team success in year 3, but if you're going to keep the guys you just got committed on board, you got to do something better than what we did at the quarterback position.
I agree. I think, and now that you're getting your own recruits in, 100% agree, Brian. Like, the pressure is even more on, because these aren't dudes you inherited. These are dudes you made real promises to.
Right.
Right. So the pressure will be on, and you've got to fix it. But I think they put themselves in a position at QB that, did you guys hear what Matt Rule said? He was like, right now, if you don't have $1 million, you're not getting a top portal QB.
Right.
Auburn is not spending $1 million on Grayson McCall or these kids are asking some ridiculous money. Now, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. I talked to somebody about this the other day. The numbers that you hear flying around, it's not anywhere near what people think it is.
Right.
It's just not. But you spent that money. And guys, that money is not coming from nowhere.
Right.
People are donating that money with the expectation that you are using it in the most efficient way possible. Somebody, I don't know if you want to hear this, but somebody wrote a check for Peyton Thorne. That's today's college football. Somebody wrote a check for Peyton Thorne. And if it was my check, I'm like, I want to see Peyton Thorne on the field.
Relax, B. You got
I'm chill.
relax. You got
I'm
to
chill.
relax.
Mhm.
I'm chill.
Somebody wrote a check, and somebody's going to have to write the next check. You cannot be delusioned into thinking there's an endless pot of money to go out and give out in NIL. There's not. Right? What happened, a lot of those dollars that you guys that used to get donated to Tigers Unlimited, which is the fundraising arm of the athletic department, is getting diverted to these collectives. That money and the people giving the money, they're not just digging in for another $1 million. They're saying, I'm giving you 500 here and 500 there, or whatever level of that they're giving. That's why the collective has a subscription-based model to try to crowdsource the gap.
Which people need to go donate to.
Yeah. So if you donate to that, right? Yeah, like if you get 100,000 people, get $5 a month, right? You got $500,000 a month. But they've got to promote that, and we had Brett Whiteside come on this show and talk about how their model works. No more than 10% of what they take in top goes to their operating budget. That's salaries, that's events, that's all that other stuff. So even if you donate $1 million a year to On to Victory, only 100,000 of that goes to, operations stuff. Now, from what I understand, they have a building, they got a lease, and they're paying some salary. Jason Campbell is in there. I'm sure his name is not cheap. Right. And you've got money that has to get allocated for this stuff. So I don't think it's likely, personally, that they go out and get a portal QB worth upsetting the dynamic of your current QB room, unless Holden Geriner leaves.
Right. And to be clear here, we expect Robbie to go. And the reason we're not discussing Robbie is we expect Robbie to go.
Right, 100%.
Because of, and honestly, I think it was made extensively clear, we don't trust you to actually quarterback. So we're not going to give you the opportunity to actually quarterback. You're a gadget guy. So they've showed them what they think about him. He says, okay, that's fine. I understand what you think about me. I think better of myself. I'm going to take my talents.
Yeah, I expect him to be on the roster through the spring and transfer after that. Right. Because I think he graduates this summer. And that's the extent to what that I want to talk about Robbie Ashford. For the rest of this QB room, this is Holden. I think this is up to Holden. It's Holden's decision.
So basically, all eyes, because we got to get out of here and get to the drawing and to other things. So basically, all eyes are on Holden Geriner in terms of what starts the domino effect, if any, in terms of what this coaching staff does.
I just don't see anything else that makes sense. Right? It's if you want a portal QB, if you say Auburn has to go out, you're pretty much saying bye-bye Holden.
Right.
That's the only thing that makes sense. But if you keep him and you got Walker and you got Peyton, you're going to add another QB to that dynamic? I don't see. And that guy would be coming in for the spring. Plus, Robbie Ashford's just kind of sitting on the roster. Like that. It's not. I mean,
you got four. You have 4 scholarship QBs going.
Yeah,
if Holden stays, you have 4 scholarship QBs.
I'm not saying there's no possibility, guys. I'm just saying I don't see it. Yeah. And I know a lot of people. Quarterback will be the talk of the portal again. It is, but I think it's more likely they bet on Peyton Thorne for year 2, given all the factors involved. And try to bring Holden along as a backup, and hopefully that's better yields. Right, Peyton Thorne had 239 pass attempts last year. Hugh Freeze's quarterbacks have averaged 400 to 450 pass attempts a season. That's how much they managed him this year. Right, and I don't think you can do that going into next year. Right, I think you gotta let it rip at least about 100 more attempts. You've got to be in the mid 300s next year for these receivers to get the types of opportunities where they can actually develop, and then people can stop screaming at a kid who's only gotten 6 targets in a year when he has a drop.
Right.
Because the top receivers in the country are dropping passes too. They're just getting a lot more balls thrown at them. Right. I'm. The QB conversation also it gets me fired. I just want to be clear that everybody is listening that if you're sitting here and you're focusing all your energy on who they're going to get at QB in the portal, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Right, and you can, as if we hear the caveat, because I've learned that I got to do this.
Okay.
Because I said there's no way Cam Coleman's committing, and then you were like, what if Jimbo gets fired? I'm like, yeah, well, obviously if he got fired, that would change the math a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what happened. The caveat is Holden. Holding Gurner, to me, is the key to all this.
So let me ask you this, Mike. Let me ask you this before, because I said we had to move on, but now I got a question.
I had another question too. I thought we was going to the drawing.
Mm-hmm. So if, let's just say Riley Leonard says, you know what, Notre Dame kick rocks. I do want to go to Auburn. Does that have as much weight as what Holden decides to do? If Riley Leonard is begging Hugh Freeze, I want in on Auburn, does that change the calculus we have here with Holden's decision?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Holden, 100%, you're like, I'm out. You're bringing in another portal QB.
But my point is, if this coaching staff comes up on a QB that they think elevates or upgrades this room and fits what they're trying to do, does Holden's decision become inconsequential at that point?
Yes, it does. It does.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I agree that it does. I just don't think that it's likely because of the money aspect of this.
Fair enough.
They ain't paying for
which
Riley
is why Riley Leonard is leading Notre Dame.
Yeah, right. And I'm paying for that. And people forget that is part of this conversation, man. Somebody wrote a big ass check for Payton Thorne. And that dude right now is looking for ROI.
I just don't know what you say to Holden Gurner. I just don't know what you say to get him to stay.
Yeah, you promise him QB2, right? And I would probably guess
he doesn't want to be QB2.
Listen, if they want Holden Gurner to stay, that's already been communicated to him. Right? If they already want him to stay, they've made the pitch. Obviously, Peyton is in front of you right now because of the experience, but here are the ways we can see you overtaking him as QB1. I don't know what that sounded like, but that is exactly the conversation that would have had to have happened for Holden. Yeah. Right? But no matter what, nobody's going to jump over you into QB2. That's what I meant when I guaranteed QB2.
Okay.
Your floor is QB2. Your ceiling is obviously QB1. Here's how QB1 happens. Holden stays, and then all this portal talk about QBs. Because I don't want to spend a whole portal next month. The portal closes on January 3rd, talking about a bunch of dudes that are never going to come to Auburn. And,
we'll know what's up in the next 10 days.
Yeah. I'm telling you. And everybody who thinks, you have to start to look to the future at some point. And if you keep bringing in portal QBs, it resets that conversation like another year.
Right.
It does. Every portal QB, it backs it up another year. You can't do that 2 years in a row, man, and then try to sell to top freshman QBs coming out of high school that Auburn is a good spot to land. Because all they're going to see is you picking up portal QBs every year.
Right.
And think, I don't know. I don't know how that works.
It's a refurb. You getting refurbs.
I'll take 7 and 6 next year and a bowl game win if Walker White is the dude going into year 3. If the dude you recruited out of high school is ready to take over and step in like Carson Beck did for Stetson Bennett, and we can start a pipeline of guys taking over the job after they developed in your system, I'll ride with 7 and 6 next year all day long. I would. I'd take a 500 record where you win some good ones and you lose some tough ones, but you can still show improvement in terms of your system at that. You know what I mean? Like you still win 7 games and show improvement in how you're moving the offense along.
I ain't gonna lie. You go 7 and 6. There's an ugly loss somewhere.
No.
Yeah. Well, look, the schedule gets tougher. No. Remember, the schedule gets tougher next year. Schedule is tougher next year because this is the expanded SEC. Oklahoma comes to Jordan Hare next year.
We're still only playing 8 games, though.
Yeah, but it's a tougher schedule. It is tougher schedule than they had this year.
This was an easy schedule. 6 and 6. Righteously. This was 6 and 6 this year is just as bad as 5 and 7 last year.
There's an ugly loss somewhere.
Guys, I don't know, man.
There's an ugly loss somewhere.
I don't know about that. Look at the schedule for next year.
You can't go 7 and 5. There's an ugly loss, Mike.
Okay. So you play Missouri. You got Kentucky, you got Georgia, you have Oklahoma, you got Alabama. That's 5 right there that are going to be pretty tough. Now you've got Vandy, Arkansas, which should be dubs. You got Texas A&M, who knows what they're going to be, could or could not be. Right? You've got Cal coming to Jordan Hare, and then you've got ULM in New Mexico. Like, it's not necessarily an ugly loss. It's maybe a little disappointing.
New Mexico State.
New Mexico.
Okay. Either way.
Yeah. I'm
scared if it's New Mexico State. Listen,
right.
You say New Mexico
right.
State,
New
like saying Candyman now. Like, don't say that.
Yeah,
I don't want to come over here.
Yeah, I get my point is
Stay out of that state.
This I would have agreed with that statement for this year. For next year, I don't know how ugly the loss would be. This is a tough schedule. Adding Missouri and Kentucky to the schedule, even though you lose LSU, with where I expect this team to be, I think those are games they could reasonably lose if there is no improvement. So yeah, it's ugly if you look the same as you did this year. But, I'm leaving room for those teams to improve. And I'm just looking at Vandy, Arkansas, and Cal. And I'm thinking, all right, wins there plus ULM and New Mexico, right? That's your 5 wins. And now I got to find 2 more wins between Alabama, Georgia, Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M.
Well, fortunately for us, a few of those teams are completely resetting things. Not only is Oklahoma losing their OC, but they're also losing their quarterback. Dylan Gabriel's out of eligibility. Sure. The same thing with, name the teams again. Kentucky. Kentucky has the exact same problem. They brought in a rental this year, and I'm not concerned about Kentucky, to be honest. All right, so good defensive team, bad offense, which is what they've been every year. Except
we're playing them on the road or at home.
It's on the road at Kroger Field.
That will be at least a somewhat challenging game. They're a good defensive team. Missouri had a good year this year. I don't know how scared I am of Missouri. Drink did it 1 year. 1 year. I would be say, okay, now I believe they do it again.
Is he Gus's protege through and through? He gonna come back with a slaw year?
That's what I'm saying, man. As soon as people get on this bandwagon, they expect it. As soon as they expect it out of them, it gets shaky. But listen, what happens every year, and we can get to the break after this, is somebody's not going to be as good as we thought, and somebody's not going to be as bad as we thought. We just don't know who that is. It's why we play the games. You got to watch it play out. I'm not worried about 7 and 5. I think with that schedule, considering where we're coming from, would be an improvement because 6-6 this year is actually again, it was not a good year. But how do those 7 and 5 look? Like, to your point about this year, Mike, you were like, well, he said I'm going to improve the teams as soon as I get there. All right. Do you call this an improved season? Because we felt like we were bad last year. I feel like this season was worse because we actually underperformed. We actually played worse than our talent dictated that we could have been. And I think that's an underachievement in year 1. But next year, who knows, man? Who knows? We don't even know who's going to be starting quarterback for us. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's Peyton Thorne.
Yeah, you do.
Peyton Thorne.
We're gonna talk about it. See, we get to break. I got a question I want to pose to everybody as soon as we get back.
It's Peyton Thorne. It's 100% Peyton Thorne.
You know who the starter's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't accept that.
Yeah, I resign to it. I think it's Peyton.
I'd rather have Spencer Rattler than Peyton Thorne.
Oh, what? Oh, God, it is the end days. This man just wished for Spencer Rattler.
He's your boy. Come on, man. Knock it off. All right, guys. We're giving away. Did you move that up here, Mike? Is that right? We're giving away a t-shirt?
No, mug. We're giving away a mug.
We're giving away a mug courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Mike is ready to draw. Mike G, take it away.
Yay, let's go. Who's going to win it today?
We got a few supers to get to as well. Greg Reeves. I have a sneaky suspicion.
All right,
you may have a mug. Now, I could be wrong. I have been wrong. I'm willing to be wrong. But do you have a mug already? And if so, are you willing for us to redraw? Or do you just want 2 mugs? Let us know. B, what was your question?
All right. So I think it was I started this comment over here so we can get to it. Okay. James Burnett asked this question, and I'm going to use this to lead into what I want to ask y'all.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike. You got it.
No, it's this one right here.
No.
Mike G, to your point, if PT got paid, then how is Holden getting a fair shot?
Welcome to
Now-
welcome to the new college football, people. Welcome to the discussion.
Okay. So what I'm gonna ask is this.
Real quick,
Go ahead.
Greg, it is a mug, so we will be running it back. Proceed to ask your question.
Let's go ahead.
Okay.
While we're running it back, why do we have any confidence? And this is, again, we're talking about Holden deciding to stay or go could dictate things looking drastically different. Because if you're gonna lose Holden as a Q number 2, as was a D. Regit Williams,
Regret.
help us
Yeah.
out with the
D.
syllabic,
It was
the
D-Dub.
syllabic spelling.
D-Dub, let us know if you're here, sir. Go ahead, B.
So, all right, Peyton Thorne is here. You thought he was going to be something. You paid some money thinking he was going to be like a legit QB1, and he's not as good. Like I don't believe this, and I want to give Hugh Freeze his benefit of the doubt. I don't think this is about, man, that's the best possible quarterback that I could have gotten, and that's the best I think my quarterback can play. I don't believe that Hugh Freeze thinks that. We've seen better QB play from a Hugh Freeze quarterback before. The mistakes that are made in the NFL as far as teams tying themselves to players because of financial investment, it happens. And GMs do it and coaches do it. They tie their fortunes to a player. It happens all the time. I guess I'm a little disappointed to see it happening now, because what seems to make the most sense to me is, yes, I'm going to spend plenty of money to get this guy at the portal because I think he can be good, and I'm willing to make that investment. And if I'm wrong, we'll deal with it later. And then I got this other guy, let's say a Holden Geriner, who has the skill set that I'm looking for, could do something good, but I didn't pay a lot of money for him. He was here. He didn't have any experience in his first season. 2022, 2023 comes. I give him third QB snaps. He's the QB number 3. You don't know what Holden Geriner can or cannot be. I would like to imagine that here at Auburn University, all of the players will be given a fair shot in spring and say, this is it. Because whether it's Peyton Thorne getting paid a bunch of money to come here or Holden Geriner not making much, the money is spent. I would much rather coaches and everybody else look at it like, we spent X amount of dollars on our QB room. Who gets that start needs to be the best player in that room. It doesn't matter that a guy who's getting paid 2/3 of the money that we spent on the room is on the bench. Great investment as a backup. That's a good floor to have. If you're telling me Peyton Thorne is the worst we can do because he's the backup quarterback, fine. If Holden Geriner outplays Peyton Thorne in the spring, I don't give a shit how much money they play for Peyton Thorne. Put the best quarterback on the field, and if he needs experience, give him experience. Let him play. In what world do you let a more talented player, I'm saying more talented because I'm saying the guy who won it on the field in your spring and in fall camp, why would you not put him on the field and give everybody else on that offense the best opportunity to excel as well? Because that's what the quarterback does. The best quarterback lets everybody else play better and puts everybody in a better position to succeed as well. Tying money to a player makes no sense to me. The money is spent. To your point, Mike, you said, hey, man, that check, it's done. We spent that. If boosters don't have another million or however much we expect it to cost to go and get another quarterback, okay, cool. Play the best player in your room and let that be it.
I agree with whoever said. You'll get no argument from me on that. Anything you just said. All I'm saying is that it's a factor, and it's why I would not expect them to go out and get a portal QB. Because you're not going to do that again. You're not going to do that 2 years in a row. Yeah. You're just not, right? You're recruiting kids out of high school for a reason, right? You groom one of the guys that you have coming up and get him ready. And then this year, to me, again, you want to take steps forward, but it's going to be something that this is why we give a coach a few years to build a program. Right? Yeah. Because we understand the first couple of years might not look the way we want it to. So a step forward in terms of production may not mean a step forward in terms of record. And that's what I want everybody else to understand. So 7 wins and some disappointing losses might be on the way next year. But the situation that they set up with Peyton Thorne is this is it. This is what you have to do. And so it's done. I don't want to go back and argue about whether they should have done it. It just is. It's done.
It is what it is.
Now deal with it moving forward. Deal with the situation you have moving forward, and make sure you set up the guys that you're recruiting out of high school to be the guys moving forward. Because you have to get to a point to where if you have to get your program to a point with the portal guys where if you're going to the portal for a guy to start, it is truly an emergency. Yeah, because the dude who you recruited out of high school should always get the first shot in my book. Unless you're telling me there's some can't miss prospect that is transferring into your program that you just absolutely could not turn down. It's not usually how it happens. At the very least, those guys are still unproven, even if they were highly regarded coming out of high school. You're not transferring because things are going great and it's working out where you're at.
Right.
Transferring because you're at a program that maybe can't get it done or something's not going. Yeah. Something's going on there. And is the reason you're transferring. And more often than not, it's not about coaches leaving. It's about not being able to beat out a guy or not seeing the field. Those are the top two reasons people are leaving their programs. After that, you have guys who just want to transfer to better programs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But coming in, is that guy going to be heads and tails over, they had a kid come from Notre Dame to Alabama. And they were willing to give him a look because they were uncertain enough at quarterback based on spring performances that they could not hold off. But Jalen Milroe still got the first shot.
I had no confidence that QB was getting the
start. I'm just saying he wasn't able to walk in the door and take it from the guy that they recruited out of high school. And they gave him one game. It didn't look great. And they're like, yeah, we've got a process. Let's continue to invest in the kids that we recruit. That's where Auburn has to get. And then when you're going to the portal, it's truly because there's a dynamic talent available. And those guys know that they got to be good if they're coming into your program and they expect to play immediately. Every once in a while, you get stuck in cycles where you need a stopgap while the guys from high school catch up. Yeah. What was the guy that Alabama had? The transfer of Ohio State was their best receiver that year.
Jameson Williams.
Well, yeah. He would walk in and was their best receiver.
Yeah.
Right. Stopgap. And then when these guys from high school catch up, and then you're right back in that same cycle. That's where Auburn has to head. You can't do that if you just keep grabbing guys out of the portal and giving them the job. It's not going to ever happen. So I agree with you, B. The money can't be the reason. It shouldn't be the reason, I'm going to say, but we're not going to sit here and act like it's not a factor, right? Like,
right,
100% is a factor.
I will say this: you can make an argument. This is one of those years you need a stopgap,
right?
I would say this could be the years where you make that argument. And Walker White catches up. He sits in the system a year. He's ready to go next year.
Yeah. I think that it's a different calculus for a coach when he goes to the portal for a quarterback. Before you go in, you bring a guy in, and you're only promising him a chance to compete. There's no money involved. It's like, listen, if you're better than the other guy, you'll play. That's why I'm bringing you in.
Right.
Yeah. That used to be the line.
Right.
Now you got all this money flying everywhere, and everybody wanted college players to get paid, but nobody wants to deal with the reality. But they still want things to function as it did before. That's not how it works.
Well, let me give you this too. Because, of course, I wish Ike was on because he's a San Francisco 49ers fan. They spent plenty of not money in a sense, but draft capital for Trey Lance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't stay healthy. And when he did get on the field, he didn't look great. And then they grabbed this guy way out in the back of the draft, Brock Purdy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Except in the pros, you can actually invest. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback at this time. So you got your guy up there. He's not great. Jimmy Garoppolo is all right. He is the Peyton Thorne of the NFL. That's what Jimmy Garoppolo is. But he's up there, and you can still get to some highs with him because the defense was crazy. They made it to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. It wasn't about him. It was about everybody around him. But still, they had a decision to make when it came to Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Did they put Brock Purdy out there maybe just once or twice and say, no, Trey Lance has got to work. He's got to work. Let's put him out there because we spent too much. They said, nah, this other kid is actually just as good as we were hoping you were. It doesn't matter that we paid 2 nickels, a penny, and some pocket lint for him. He's good. It doesn't matter. The money is spent. The draft capital is spent. We sent those picks. They're gone. They're done. I need the guy who's going to help me win. And right now, they're in position to get back to the postseason, and they look good. He's going to have some lumps because he has barely started a full season in the NFL, but they invested in him as far as playing time and development. His lows are going to be a springboard for his highs later because they gave him the time. The problem in college is they aren't giving guys the time after they give them the money. There are plenty of guys who have gotten the money and then, they've gotten the time and it's like, okay, well, you're not really that good. There are also coaches who make really smart decisions, like paying Matt Flynn from the Green Bay Packers. Matt Flynn was a reserve for the Green Bay Packers. He had 2 games where they sat Aaron Rodgers because they had secured the playoff spot. And I think the last game he balled out of control, signed a huge deal in the offseason. They drafted Russell Wilson, said, oh, no, sorry, you can keep the money. You're the highest paid backup in the world. We're playing this kid from Wisconsin because he's better than you right now. Why can't that decision be made? We see that is the best player right now. And on top of that, even if he's not the best player right at this second we drafted him, we're going to put y'all in spring camp, and we're not going to give you a leg up just because we paid you. We need the best person to win these games. I think the problem has been, to this point, Mike, and you said this, they've been looking at this season and maybe the next season like, we'll figure it out. The NFL's in urgency, like, no, we need to win right now, unless it's just impossible. We'll tank so we can be in win right now mode later. But if you have remotely the aspiration that you're going to compete, you compete to win right now.
Yeah,
I don't see that. Not from this, not the way things went this year. It was kind of like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not even saying you don't need to do that to a certain extent, but go with who you pay the most. That's not a winning strategy.
All right, gentlemen, let's get out of here. Dre Grit Williams is how you pronounce it. Okay. He says he is here. Congratulations, sir. We need you to do us a favor. We need you to email us business@thewarreport. Email us business@thewarreport. When you do, make sure you include your physical address, and that mug will be coming your way. Congratulations. Thanks again for supporting and watching. Black Wing says, be Will, channel the energy for Grayson McCall. Is that your guy,
I would
B?
like to see that. I would like to see it. I would have liked to seen it last year. I think he fit what Hugh Freeze wants to do better than anybody who was in the portal for the second window last year, and better than anybody who's in the portal this year. That includes Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard is a great athlete. He's not as accurate as Grayson McCall. I think this is the best fit. Am I saying he's the most talented quarterback? No. I think Grayson McCall is the best fit for what Hugh Freeze wants to do on offense. I'm still riding for him. Pending, like Mike said, Holden's decision. Does he stay or go? That's up to Holden, and the chips will fall from there.
So Nina says, I think Coach Hugh Freeze is a ride or die for Thorne. And I think that's a shaking my head emoji.
That's a slap in my head. Like, oh no.
Slap in my head.
I mean, I think that's his guy, and he's got to display confidence in him because, I mean, he chose him.
Yeah, he's going to be on the roster. Yeah. You got to show confidence in him.
You got to show confidence. On the sly, well, not even really on the sly, early when he thought that, okay, I'm going to need Robbie to play games, and Robbie's my true number 2, right? You heard a lot of confidence from Hugh Freeze and Robbie Ashford. Oh, well, we're really pleased with how much he's improved in the offseason, even with throwing the ball. He's gotten great. Robbie's always going to have a package. After that Mississippi State game where they said, all right, we're just going to ride with Payne Thorne no matter what, you didn't hear Robbie's always going to have a package one more time. That was it. That was the end of the Robbie Ashford, because you're like, well, nah. What you heard actually was either that week or the next was, I mean, if Holden's gonna, might end up, starting for us someday. That was the beginning of the shift. He decided to then, I need to retain Holden Gurner, not necessarily Robbie Ashford.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That was the re-recruitment of Holden Gurner, and it started during the season because he changed his tone because I think he knew at that point, we haven't given Robbie enough, or we don't believe in him enough. He gets it. He's gonna go. I need to start working on Holden Gurner because I don't need him to go, because we really can't afford to go and get another top portal QB. All this has been stewing for a minute. I think this has been in the cooker for a minute. I don't know if Hugh Freeze is as ride or die for Thorne as he is. I've got to make it work with what I've got. And what I've got is Holden Geriner, Peyton Thorne, and Walker White. And I think he's good. He's trying to make the most of it.
Hank Brown.
Hank Brown. Hank Brown.
Joshua Jordan says, I disagree, Mike. I think Hugh would get a transfer QB if he knows it will attract Ryan Williams. Holden be damned, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Holden could attract Ryan Williams if you let him throw. I mean, we don't know what he can do or not do. You know what I mean?
I just think that it would have to be a big enough name. Like, it's just not like what name are you going out to get? Tell me who that QB is. What QB are you going out right now that's a possibility in this portal period that you're getting out that's going to attract Ryan Williams? I know I've seen in the comments people talking about Arch Manning, like maybe, I guess, but still you're talking about an unproven kid, right?
I just don't see them going out and getting an unproven kid out of the portal. To me, that would make some of your younger guys in the room question things.
It would have to be a Quinn Ewers type, like Texas picked up from Ohio State.
Yeah.
Right. It would have to be like he was the second overall player, I think, in the country, top quarterback. It would have to be a consensus 5-star athlete that everybody wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah. James Barnett says, fellas, Coach Hugh Freeze is supposed to be the QB whisperer. If that's true, then get Peyton Thorne, Robbie, and or Holden ready to be an SEC QB. Look at his past examples.
Yeah. I mean, look, man, this is his job. That's what he said. That's what he touted. So I agree. Yeah. He said he's the QB whisperer. So let's see it.
Relaxing Joe says, what is Coach Hugh Freeze telling these wide receiver recruits who the QB is going to be?
That's what I want to know.
Oh, man, this is a great question. That's a great question. And I'll tell you, there's a mix of things happening there I can't get into here. But, like, look, man, it's an effective pitch. And hopefully it bears out the way that they're selling it.
Corey Dubb says, pay for Riley Leonard. Tell PT to kick rocks. Hire Alexander Shinara to get that NIL money back.
All right. A lot of stuff, Corey, needs to happen there.
Thank you for these only in the state of Alabama references that you would get. Because if you say Alexander Shinara, very few people outside of the state are going to know what you're talking about. That's great.
Corey Weber says, any truth to the smoke around Arch Manning and AU?
Look, there are going to be people who report this because we're going into the dead season and it'll get clicks. Right? I'll say that much. There are people who are going to want you to click on every article about Arch Manning. Now, the truth is that he is one of the few names that could jump in the portal that would garner the type of attention that it would get your attention. Right. If Arch Manning said, I'm looking at Auburn would find the money.
Yeah.
Right. So that is my caveat to this QB portal conversation is you're talking about a number one overall, number one QB, number one recruit. Right. Of course, you're going to give that guy a look. You're not. I mean, listen, man, Texas thought they had some guys at QB and then Quinn Ewers decided he wanted to go there. And they did what they needed to do to get Quinn Ewers there. Right. Because they felt like he was that much of a game changer. And they've recruited so well, they ended up with both Quinn and Arch. Mm-hmm. And this is what the portal has given kids the opportunity. Like Arch didn't beat out Quinn. And so now Arch may be looking for another home because he's faced with the prospect of sitting behind Quinn for another year.
Or Malik Murphy. I mean,
correct.
Quinn for another year, and even after that, it's not decided that he would necessarily start.
Yeah, right. So this is the type of name where if you get a chance at a number one overall prospect, you certainly will take a look at it. This would open some pocketbooks. But yeah, I don't like, and I think this is why this is something that would be reported because people know this would open the pocketbooks.
Right.
In my opinion, this doesn't seem likely, but you can't ever rule it completely out because Auburn would be a place where Arch would be promised the starting job.
Anywhere he goes.
Yeah. Arch Manning is not coming in to compete. Yeah. He's not coming in to compete. If he's coming to your program, he's starting, period. Right. Like, and you're promising him that coming through the door. You're telling everybody else we're bringing Arch Manning in, so get ready to be 2 and 3. This I don't know who the other QB in the country that might be rumored to jump in the portal would be that's on this level, but this might be the only QB that shifts the conversation. Riley Leonard and like those guys don't move. To me, they don't move the needle enough statistically to warrant go out, bring them in, and upsetting the balance of the QB room. That's no.
Rick Kazanave says, remember the QB the wide receivers wanted at the pro day.
Holden. They all picked Holden to throw to him.
Yeah.
We will definitely see the transfer portal opens up on tomorrow. We'll keep an eye on guys who are on our current roster, as well as seeing who the coaching staff shows interest in over the next few days. We will definitely keep you up to date with the morning drops, as well as our live show throughout the week. Mike G, tell the people how they can get a green name and get access to our film reviews.
Yeah, congratulations to our drawing winner, Dragrit Williams. Appreciate you for being a part of our community. Become a patron member. $5.99 a month will get you there. Also, you can give the gift of the War Report by gifting a membership. These are chosen at random. So watch your email. You may be on the receiving end of one of these memberships. Also want to thank title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron, goldenscastiron.com /rapport. WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. They make great products over there. He's got the fire pit. I've got the Kamado. Guys, just great products, lifetime products that you and your family will enjoy for as long as you wish. So goldenscastiron.com. Support those who support us. I want to give a quick shout out to the War Report Podcast Network, the Auburn Express, Uptempo Podcast, Just a Sec, a College Loop. Great audio only content there. Also want to thank show sponsor Manscaped. Friends over at Manscaped, they're working night and day to bring you below the waist grooming experience like no other with the brand new Lawnmower 5.0. Upgrade your grooming game to the Ultrasphere this year by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with code Rapport. High tech for low places. Manscaped. Also want to thank show sponsor HelloFresh. Visit HelloFresh.com. /50 rapport. Use code 50 rapport. Get a discount on that HelloFresh order. Great products over there at HelloFresh. We appreciate our friends there for supporting the War Report.
And before you get out of here, please be sure to do the necessary and share this content with others. Smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. You can find us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at The War Report. We are TW Report on TikTok. Zipper now, we will definitely catch you in the morning with the morning drop. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.